Welcome back. During an earlier session, we discussed willful operator errors. We saw that one remedy was motivation. Now we take up the subject of motivation. In doing so, let us first notice that motivation for quality is not restricted to the workforce. We need motivation for quality for all the human forces in the company, managers, supervisors, specialists, as well as workers. We also need this motivation throughout the entire quality function. Vendors, the merchant chain, users, service shops, society generally. Why do we need to discuss motivation for quality at all? No one is against quality. Everyone is for quality. We need to discuss motivation for quality because the word motivation has multiple meanings. Our concern is with three of these meanings. First, motivation in the sense of conformance to specifications and adherence to procedures. We will call this motivation for control. Second, motivation in the sense of improving quality and reducing quality-related costs. We will call this motivation for improvement. And third, motivation in the sense of interest in the company's goals, willingness to help the company attain its goals, acceptance of the company's policies, standards, and codes of conduct. We will call this motivation for involvement. Let's start with motivation for managers. And first, we will look at motivation for control. All companies hold managers responsible for meeting various standards, including standards for quality. The managers accept this responsibility. Yet managers are often accused of lacking quality-mindedness. These accusations are usually traceable to several dominant causes. First, multiple standards. When line managers are unable to meet all standards simultaneously, they resort to trade-offs. Such trade-offs lead to accusations of lack of quality-mindedness or cost-mindedness, and so on. These accusations come from the specialist assurance departments, each of whom feels its own specialty deserves top priority. There are additional sources of conflict between line managers and quality managers. Disposition of non-conforming product. The line managers tend to emphasize fitness for use, while quality managers are in addition concerned that repeated shipment of non-conforming products may weaken the discipline of meeting quality specifications in general. Interest in techniques versus results. Our quality specialists may accuse line managers of lack of quality-mindedness because they, the line managers, resist adoption of certain techniques. To many specialists, the merits of these techniques are evident from logical reasoning, but line managers tend to judge the merits by the results achieved. Next, interest in product quality versus the quality department. Quality specialists may resent being excluded from areas which affect product quality, such as product development activities. But line managers may consider this as merely another problem in organization jurisdiction. Finally, there's the dialect of the specialist versus the language of management. In one large European company, the quality managers had become convinced that the main quality problem was lack of interest by upper management. Then, an outside consultant showed the managing director an estimate of the cost of poor quality and of the opportunity for improvement. It was the first time the managing director had seen this opportunity in language he could relate to. So he promptly convened all senior managers to discuss the opportunity. To accuse the line manager of lack of motivation for quality seldom serves a useful purpose. In theory, the line manager can give top priority to quality the year round. In practice, the line manager is beset by many forces. Some of these are stronger than the line manager. The ups and downs of the marketplace, the priorities of upper management. The constructive approach is to try to identify the forces which mandate the line manager's behavior, and then to try to help the line manager deal with these forces. Now let's look at motivation for improvement. All managers would like to have improvements. but they usually lack the machinery for making improvements. A common approach is the exhortation cascade. The president convenes the vice presidents and urges them to improve performance. The vice presidents then convene their managers, and so on, right through the hierarchy. Everyone gets the message, but little will happen. The reason is that they have not agreed on what projects to tackle, on who has the responsibility to guide the projects, and so on. Their desire to improve is academic if they lack the machinery for improvement. The key question is, should managers be held responsible for improvement as well as for control? Your workbook includes a census form headed Manager's Responsibility for Improvement. Before this session is concluded, it would be a good idea to take this census. Motivation for involvement is not a problem as applied to the great majority of managers. The aspirations of managers are closely tied to the achievements of the company. Devotion to the company's interests is widely accepted as an element of the managerial creed. Now, let us turn to motivation for workers. Most employees are workers. Under modern laws, they have extensive rights in the job. They are also able to exert broad influence on certain aspects of company operations. For these and other reasons, many managers believe that the workforce is the main influence in matters of quality. The facts are otherwise. Most defects are management controllable. This is only one of a number of areas in which widely held managerial views are of doubtful validity. Another area concerns pride in the job. The village craftsman had a personal and major stake in the quality of his product. His livelihood depended on the saleability of those products, and he knew it. His company interests and his personal interests were identical. He was the company. Of course, he also had other goals to meet: low costs, prompt delivery. But quality had high priority because his family's survival and status were at stake if product quality was poor. Until the Industrial Revolution, manufacture was done mostly by skilled craftsmen. The subsequent expansion of industry outran the supply of craftsmen. The problem became one of how to carry out manufacture by use of semi-skilled and unskilled workers. The major departure from the craftsmanship concept was that developed by Frederick W. Taylor. Taylor was a mechanical engineer. Before becoming plant manager, he had acquired experience as a machinist, a foreman, and plant superintendent. From this experience, he had concluded that certain features of manufacturing planning should be based on science, not rule of thumb. Design of methods for doing work. Establishment of standards for a day's work, that is, how many pieces per hour. Selection and training of workers. And design of the piece rate, how much money per piece. Taylor felt that such a scientific approach was beyond the capability of the foremen and workers. In those days, now that was in the late 1800s and early 1900s, in those days, education levels were very low by today's standards. Taylor's solution was to separate planning from execution. He gave the planning job to the engineers. He then limited the job of foremen and workers to that of executing the plans prepared by the engineers. The Taylor system had profound effects on the economy of the United States. First, as to productivity, the system was spectacularly successful in raising productivity. It became a major force in making the United States the most productive country on earth. Second, as to quality. Here the Taylor system had a negative effect due to overstressing of productivity and due to erosion of the craftsmanship concept. Finally, as to human relations. Here the effect of the Taylor system was also negative. This has gotten worse as education levels have risen. Today, in many companies, the major underemployed asset is the education and creativity of the workforce. Now let us turn to the question of loss of pride in the job. Skilled craft workers constitute only a minority of the workforce in modern industry. This decline in the craftsmanship concept has been due to several major developments. First, the Industrial Revolution and the rise of the factory system. Workers in these factories were not self-employed artisans. Their livelihood did not depend on the saleability of their products. Second, the tailor system. It deprived workers of the right to plan their own work. And third, the assembly line concept. Organization of work into highly repetitive, short-cycle tasks has made jobs uninteresting, boresome, and devoid of meaning. These developments are all pertinent to the question of whether workers have lost pride in their job. In comparing today's workers to craftsmen of other centuries, we must be careful. For many of today's workers, the work is not the same. McGregor's famous comparison of theory X and theory Y is to the same effect. Here's a worker. He's being observed by two managers, X and Y. The worker shows no interest in quality or even in work. Manager X concludes, here is a living example of the deterioration of the human race. As managers, we must not just stand and watch. We must take steps to halt this decline by skillful use of incentives and penalties, the carrot and the stick. Manager Y sees the same phenomena. The facts are identical, but Manager Y reaches a different conclusion. This worker has a repetitive, monotonous job. No one can take pride in something so meaningless. Since it is the managers who decide how work is organized, only the managers can solve the problem. We must reorganize work in ways which can recreate pride in the job. The theories are debatable, but there's no debate on the need for some new approach to worker motivation. A major part of that need is to make use of that huge underemployed asset, the education and creativity of the workforce. With respect to worker motivation for quality, company efforts are taking several forms. First, revision of the company's long-range program of motivation for quality. Second, short-range campaigns. And third, participative programs. Let's look at each of these. The most influential force in worker motivation for quality is the company's long-range program of employee relations. This program includes, first, the policy on job design. This decides whether jobs will be inherently interesting or not. Second, recruitment and induction practices. These can give much or little emphasis to quality. Third, training, whether it explains the why as well as the how. Next, supervision. It should set a good example. And communication, to keep workers informed on management actions relative to the worker's job. The better this basic system, the need for campaigns or supplemental programs. Next, let's look at the motivation campaign. It is an intensive, temporary drive. It aims to raise the priorities given to quality now. A well-run campaign contains two elements or packages: a quality improvement package and a propaganda package. The improvement package should provide for assisting workers to do better work, for answering the question, what should I do different than I'm doing now? We saw one form of such assistance in the piston ring foundry, the quality cue cards. These cue cards listed the principal operator controllable errors and showed the associated knack which could avoid the errors. A second major element of the improvement package is securing ideas of workers. The most recent form of this is through the QC circle concept, which we will examine shortly. Now let's turn to the propaganda package. It is a form of mass communication to all workers. It has several purposes. To increase employee awareness of the importance of quality. For example, quality makes sales, sales makes jobs. Second, to convince employees that they can do something about quality on their own jobs. And third, to stimulate employee action. Mass communication methods are used because the same message is intended for many people. The propaganda consists of devices long used by persons who have something to sell. Attention getters, interest arousers, stimuli to action. The literature is full of details on such matters. One thing to avoid is a campaign consisting of a propaganda package without an improvement package. To the workers, that looks like the managers are just throwing a hot potato in the workers' lap. Similarly, we should avoid asking workers to make a contribution unless the managers first demonstrate good faith by offering contributions of their own, such as training programs, provision for investigation of employees' ideas, assistance to answer the question, what should I do different? Managers are widely agreed that there is need to make use of the education and creativity of the workforce. For some years, companies have been conducting experiments on how to do this. These experiments did not result in broad agreement on which direction to take. Then, early in the 1980s, there emerged an explosive interest in a concept which the Japanese have used ever since 1962, the QC circle concept. To understand that concept, let's start at the beginning. Following World War II, the Japanese companies launched a revolution to make their products saleable in world markets. Two of the major features of that revolution were a massive training program in the quality sciences and annual programs of quality improvement. The training programs started at the top. Juran's seed courses on management of quality were conducted in 1954. They were widely attended by heads of companies and other senior managers. These managers then concluded that the entire management hierarchy should acquire such training as well. The Japanese Union of Scientists and Engineers then offered follow-up courses for this purpose, and the companies responded vigorously. It took about a decade for these courses to work their way through the hierarchies. By 1962, the question arose, should we give such training to the workforce as well? The companies decided to do so, but only on a voluntary basis. So, they propagandized the courses. Then, when 10 or so workers in any one department did volunteer, the company set up a training course for them. The training course runs from 20 to 40 hours and consists of 3 parts. First, training by the book in techniques of problem solving. These include Pareto analysis to identify the vital few elements of a problem, brainstorming to secure theories of causes, the ISHIKAWA diagram to organize theories in their logical interrelationship, data sheets to collect data for testing theories. These data sheets include tally sheets to record frequencies, matrices to record data on a multivariable basis, concentration diagrams to discover patterns of defect location. The techniques also include statistical tools to read meaning out of the data, frequency histograms to show central tendency and dispersion of data, control charts to analyze time-to-time variations. We will look at these in our next session. Scatter diagrams to study relationships among variables. The second part of the training program consists of study of reports of projects carried out by other QC circles, how they used the techniques to improve quality, safety, productivity, or whatever. The third part of the training is tackling a project and applying the techniques to make an actual improvement. Here are some case examples from a Toyota Motor Company report. Here we see a circle discussing what project to tackle. They decide to tackle workplace safety, theme, accident prevention by drawing out horrible experiences. Then they discover that they lack data. Accidents are very rare, and people are reluctant to report risky experiences, that is, near accidents. So they collect data on near accidents. The data give them a basis for constructive results. A truck had almost knocked over a freestanding storage bin. The remedy was to foolproof, to install a block. An employee had nearly fallen into a pit. Again, the remedy was to foolproof, to provide a platform equipped with a spring-loaded alarm. They also come up with some improvements in quality. Certain nuts are required to undergo a retightening operation, but some are missed. The circle proposes dipping the wrench in paint to make it easy to see whether the operation was performed. Workers are having trouble holding a certain component in place during assembly. The circle finds a way to aid the worker by a holding device. In Japan, the growth of the QC circles has been phenomenal. The QC circle movement started in 1962. By 1980, the number of circles had grown to an estimated 1 million. Meaning that about 10 million workers have been trained in problem solving. A circle carries out about 3 projects a year. So, over 15 million projects have been completed during those years. The great majority of these projects would never have been tackled in the absence of the QC circles. The West began serious experiments with QC circles starting in about 1980. The principal purposes included, first, improvement in quality. Here the circles can be cost effective. However, they cannot make a major contribution to solving the company's quality problems, since the vital few quality problems can be solved only by the managers and engineers. Second, improvement in productivity. This can likewise be cost effective, but it can also encounter severe cultural resistance if there's a threat to jobs. And third, improvement in human relations. In the minds of most upper managers, this is the area of greatest importance. We will not know until the late 1980s whether, in the West, the QC circle concept is a solution to the problem of utilizing that big underemployed asset, the education and creativity of the workforce. Now, let's summarize the high points of this session. No one is against quality. Managers are well motivated for meeting quality goals, for control. Managers want quality improvement, but have only vague responsibility for improvement. Worker motivation for quality has declined from the craftsman days due to changes in job design. The most influential force in worker motivation for quality is the company's long-range program of employee relations. Participative programs are a promising approach toward enabling workers to use their education and creativity on the job. Finally, between now and the next session, take a census of company managers to discover their views on responsibility for improvement. Use a form similar to that in your workbook. Discuss the adequacy of the company's long-range program of motivation for quality. What are your conclusions? With respect to your team project, discuss the merits of trying out some form of worker participation. Also, read the workbook notes for session 16. Good luck.